Good evening, everyone. Today we take immense pleasure in introducing Mr. Pruthwik to you all. Pruthwik is a traveler, adventurer, cyclist, skater, and you name it. Pruthwik has traveled India and covered a span of 15,000 kilometers in just 2 months with a budget of just $100. Pruthwik is
Wow.
also a mental health awareness activist. Pruthwik distances himself from major social media and believes that his traveling stories inspire more people than the number of posts likes in his post. Without no further ado, let's hear from Mr. Pruthwik now.
Would you like to say something, Pruthwik, before we proceed?
Yeah. Hi, Kiran. There are a couple of details that you missed out. There were two different projects. One was the one with 15,000 kilometers that was on the motorbike. Another was the $100 expedition. That was a different one. So
Okay.
that those two are two different ones, and that excluding was the Indian skates that was on record. So
All right.
yeah,
I
I
think
just
this
thought I'll
session
share.
will definitely help Kiran learn more about you. Okay. Before we proceed, can everyone else
Uh,
mute your mics other than the ones speaking here? And
yep.
whenever you have questions, please write your questions in the chat
Does
box.
that include me?
Everyone. No, no, not you.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no,
No.
no.
Okay. Okay.
No, not you. Uh, yeah, whatever questions you have, this is to the viewers. Whoever has questions, please write your questions in the chat box, and we will read it out to him. Without ruining the flow.
Yeah. So I think you should say something. You were saying something.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
hi. So, the thing is, when it comes to introducing myself, I have a tough time introducing myself when it comes to profession because I periodically keep changing it. And I do that because it sort of excites me, the change at uh, in a large spectrum, right? Change in the sense when I'm talking about my life, I like change. I like it when things are new, when things are sort of basically new. All right, that gives me a whole lot of opportunity to learn, not just learn, and it's exciting every day. So every time I've had to introduce myself when it comes to I'm so and so and I do this. It could be whatever, and I've generally had a tough time with that. So now that being said, right now I'm an endurance and an ultra endurance athlete, and I recently worked on this project called India on Skates. Now, India on Skates was a mental health awareness project. Now, that was how I sort of got into the mental health part of it, or the mental health
Okay.
awareness part of it. So yeah, that's how. So I just had to clear that part
All right.
Okay.
So let's begin from the beginning.
out. Okay.
How did you get into this field? Why are you a fitness freak? How did it all begin?
Well, fitness sort of started when I was a kid. I sucked at education. I was really bad at it. And the worst part is my mother's a teacher. She's a PhD holder in physics, and my pop
Oh.
is an engineer, and both of them are very qualified in terms of education. And I was the black sheep of the family. So my parents decided to sort of make it clear to me, saying, if you have a tough time with education, the least you can do is at least get yourself into a sport, and at least you won't have trouble eventually when you grow up. So lucky for me, at the time my dad lived away from us, and lucky for me, my mother put me through a lot of sports, and she learned more about me before I learned about myself. Like things like she started with cricket because she said, you know what, cricket's got more money than any other sport, so get into cricket. And my mother realized it on day one. I'm not even exaggerating, on day one, that I'm not a team player. So so I got away from most of the team sports, but so sports, that's how it started. And pretty much in when I was in college and in my PU, and around that time is when I was completely away from all sports, because it was not in my realm. My college did not. Well, I don't want to blame college, but uh, I just never went to college for me to start playing any sports in college. So I missed out on a good amount of time in terms of staying fit. And also on the hindsight, I could have maybe done a lot of things differently if I had not given up sports. So yeah, that's how it all started. And it all came back when yeah, India at 72 kmph. That was the motorcycle ride. So 15,000 kilometers. It was about 2.5 months roughly. And when I came back, I had zero worked out on the ride. Like, I had done nothing at all when it comes to staying fit during that time. So once I came back, I'm not even exaggerating it, I couldn't squat once. That's how weak my knees were. Not one squat, or I couldn't even climb 2 3 floors. By the time I did, my knees would start hurting. That is purely out of weakness. And right now also my knees hurt, but because of an injury. But at the time it was purely because of weakness, because I never used my knees, at least not to stay fit kinds. So, and then that's how I again got back into sports, and I've just been in some or the other form of sports since 2013 14, I think. So yeah.
Okay. So, sports is basically not an option for you. Like, it was not a choice; it was an option for you.
Yes and no. It was a choice, as in I wanted to stay fit. Okay. I
Okay.
tried going to a gym, and gym got really monotonous to me. I mean, I needed like, I kid you not, one of the main reasons why I play any sport is because when I wake up in the morning, I have a goal. Like, I wanna do this distance in this time, or I wanna do this or whatever, or I wanna beat that other bugger who I'm playing with. So that kind of an itch I never had when I went to the gym. And then again, I went to the gym twice. That was literally 2 days. And so yeah, gym was never an option. So there was no other way for me to stay fit, and that's when I decided to play sports. And
Okay.
and then I kept having one injury after another, and yeah, that's
So
life
now you're
as
not
usual.
playing.
Mm. Now during the corona
Yeah,
lockdown.
not during this time, but like
Oh
apart
no,
from before
otherwise
the
yes.
lockdown.
Otherwise, yes, I go to this gym called Rain MMA. So that gym is a very martial arts sort of core. I mean, martial arts is the core of that gym. But I go there
Mm-hmm.
for my fitness for India on skates. Okay, and after India on skates, it was cycling. So I needed a lot of
Okay.
supportive exercises, and I still go to the gym because it's a lot more friendlier environment. More than that, it was because of the coach. To me, as I told
Mm.
you, I'm not a team person. So for me to trust another human and take his word, whatever it is, it takes a lot from my end. So I needed a coach who I don't question. So with my coach, if he told me to do 10 squats, 100 squats, 1,000 squats, whatever he tells me, I need to trust somebody enough to not question why am I having to do that. I ask him a lot of questions out of curiosity, because he comes up with some really funny looking exercises. Like, if I shot a video of those funny looking exercises and I put it up, everyone's gonna laugh. So he makes me do this. So a lot of that comes from a point of curiosity. Like, I'm curious, why do I need to do that? Which part of my body is it gonna help? But yeah, that trust factor is there, and that's the only reason I go to that gym. And yeah, so for the
Okay.
question you asked, yes, I do play a lot of sports even now. Yeah.
So, which was your actual first adventure, or which one incident do you consider your first adventure?
My first adventure are two different things. So my first adventure, or rather, the first time I ever left from home was when a friend of mine and I mean, he told his mother that we are going out on a ride, but I didn't. I lied at home. I had to sort of come up with all sorts of excuses why I'm staying out from home. So the two of us took our motorbikes and we just left from Bangalore. And we had a couple of places that we wanted to go to, and we are both history buffs, so we were clear on the places that we wanted to go to. And that was my first time I left from home. And that is in my adulthood. So that left an impression strong enough for me to decide that I wanted to go by myself. Otherwise, when I was a kid, my very first taste of adventure was we lived in Mysore at the time. My mother's colleague who lived in a whole different area. I had no idea about the name of the area. Nothing I knew other than the fact that she lived in fifth cross. That's all I knew. So I just left on my cycle looking for her place because her son and I were of the same age. I had no idea about anything, and I just left, and I finally found it. Now that was the most surprising part. And yeah, that was my very first adventure because yeah, I mean, never stayed away from home. So yeah,
Lying at home and going to a different place itself is an adventure for a person who hasn't experienced it yet, don't you think?
yes, absolutely. Another thing is not that I come from a very conservative family, but my parents probably wouldn't be open to something like this because, as I said, I mean, they're both highly educated people. So they would rather have me focus on my studies than do any of this. So if I told my mom and dad that I want to do this, they'd be like, you know what, instead pull out this physics book and study this one because you suck at this and all of that. And I didn't want to do any of that. So yeah, I mean, that's how it generally worked.
Right. So, when did you decide that you're not going to be a sports person, but you want to do adventures? You want to go on adventures. You want to go, travel. When did you decide?
The
What was that point of your life?
it's a it's a very tricky situation because look, most of you guys know what you want to do in life, right? And I didn't. I knew that I want to make a lot of money. That's all the idea I had. And I knew the best way to make money was to be an entrepreneur. And sorry, at the time I didn't even know the word entrepreneur. I called myself, I always told people that I want to be a businessman. Now, that was what was the scene all the way till my college. And the first ever ride I went on, which was India at 72 kmph, was when I realized there's a whole different side to life. And I was in my early 20s at the time. So my calling came way later than most people's too. And and then I realized it's the outdoors I enjoy. I realized it's the mountains, it's the open breeze, and I want to feel a lot of emotions. I want to feel a lot of things, the kind of things that books can't explain. I mean, they might explain how he or she felt it, but it's definitely not the same thing that tapped into my emotional spectrum. And when I realized it, I was quite late. So if I had realized that I want to do the outdoor stuff, or uh, I want to go out in the jungle and stay there for a week, or I want to go to the mountains and stay there for a week, I would have made a lot of different life choices. But my calling came very late to me. So right now, a lot of things that I can learn is limited to what I can learn by myself instead of going to a place like, let's say, Indian Army, for example. Indian Army trains people in these kind of scenarios. Like, how would you stay in a jungle for a week without any other things? Now, that's a very institutionalized sort of knowledge gap, right? And if I was given a chance, even now, I would gladly go there because purely because of the learning experience. And as I said, I was way too late when I realized it. But still, I'm glad I didn't lose out on a whole lot of time. And eventually, when I did get to know that, after that, I was old enough that I had to start earning, which meant I had to get a job. So at the time, I worked on a couple of startups just to keep the ball rolling, just so that I can make money and go out and do XYZ. And that's how things operated. So I couldn't concentrate purely on the learning part of it because I had things going on here which needed a lot of my concentration. So yeah, that's how it worked.
That gives a lot of people a lot of hope, when you say it's never too late to be something that you always wanted to be.
It's
But I
true.
just
Yeah, go
okay,
on.
yeah. So sorry, it's okay, go on.
So I mean, it's nice to know in theory that it's never too late, right? I mean, the best example you can give is the KFC fellow. I keep Colonel Sanders, if I'm not wrong, something Sanders. So anyway, you can give his example, but his was very limited to running a restaurant. The place where I'm coming from, my physical ability has a lot to do with it. So it's never too late to realize it is a very good thing. But my the things I can do physically has a lifespan, right? Maybe next 10, maybe 20 years is what I can do. But you could maybe start a restaurant at the age of 100. I don't know, but yeah. So that's what I was getting at. It should give you guys hope in the sense that it's never too late to start anything, but it also means do not wait
Wait.
to start
Yes.
something, or to sort of go down a specific path that you think is for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, yeah. So I just wanted to ask that how did you like what's the difference for sports and adventure for you? It's
Well, one of the main reasons why I play a lot of sports is because it is a form of adventure.
no,
That's
but you
And
said that adventure and sports are like two different things, and then you started knew that you were an adventurous person, one for adventure. So what
yeah,
do you think
and
is the difference?
so here, okay, let me explain this. An adventure are things I do when I'm out. I'll For this specific example, let's go with India on skates. Now that was an
Okay.
adventure, and skating is a sport. And
Okay.
India on skates was the adventure which I went on the highways when I was skating out, and that was the mental health awareness project. Now, for me to be able to do that, I needed to stay fit. And the only way for me to stay fit is instead of going to a gym, it was to play sports. So every day was the small, tiny, beanie sets of adventures that sort of built up for me to be able to do the really big sort of adventures. So that's what I meant. So
Yeah.
that's one of the main reasons why I don't go to the gym is because of that. Every day is not that kind of adventure, but sports is.
Mhm. That's nice to know.
Yeah.
So then what else do you do like
What
apart
do you
from
mean?
sports and
So,
adventure.
as I said, I am an endurance athlete at the moment, right? So,
okay.
I was working on endurance skates, and after that came in cycling. Cycling came in about last year. And then this year, in June and July, I was supposed to go to this ultra endurance cycling race. So, cycling races could be X distance in 1 day, 2 days, that kind of thing. So, this was 2 months long sort of a race wherein every single day I had to keep an average of maybe 200 or more. And you think if when you think about it, it is a sport. But when you look at the whole 2 months long project, it's a huge adventure. If I have to cycle through 14 countries, oh yeah, I'm sorry, that was happening in Europe,
Europe. Yes.
okay, and through different kinds of terrains, through different types of this thing, and yeah, thanks to Corona, that's not happening. So yeah.
When did you exactly learn to skate?
As a kid, I tried my hand at skating, and after that, it was last year in 2019, March 4th, if I'm not mistaken. And that was my day one of my adulthood skating. And on day one, I ended up on the X-ray table. I had a sprained ankle. I had a jolted knee. I had to wear braces on my neck and braces on my
Oh my
lower
God.
Oh,
waist,
That
and that was my day one.
that's that sounds so scary. How did you
It
not give up after that day one, after that incident?
So it was easy. I mean, as compared to most of you people and me, it is really easy for me to make a lot of decisions like this because I'm a very stupid person. Okay. No, I'm being very
Okay.
honest with you
yes.
because, okay, imagine this. Okay. March beginning is when all this happened. That was the first time I wore my skates. The second time I wore my skates was April end. Okay. And May beginning, is when I decided to do India on skates. And that's when I started
Wow.
working on it. So yeah, I mean, the second time I put on my skates, I realized I don't want to just skate in Common Park. I want to do something big with this. I want to have an adventure with these. I've had adventures on my motorbike, car, cycle, whatever. But skates, ever heard of anyone have an adventure on skates? I haven't. So I realized I wanted to do that. I wanted to include a lot of things. I wanted to include travel. I wanted to include sports. I wanted to include the most important of all, I want to include a cause which makes sense to people, which makes which has the potential to bring about any difference at all. And I want to include a lot of things, and I made a bhelpuri of it, which was called Indian skates.
And
So
I've seen
yeah,
that
that's how.
video
Bhelpuri
of
sounds
you.
nice.
I'm sorry.
She said Bhelpuri sounds nice.
So yeah.
We're all in quarantine, all
Yes, you're
craving for
tempting us.
chats.
Pardon me, I didn't hear that.
No,
You're just
she's just
tempting
craving for.
everybody.
Okay, one of you at a time.
Yeah. Go on, Padmini.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she just said we're like craving for chats.
yeah, I can understand.
Well, I've seen that video of yours where you're skating on your Instagram profile. But how do you manage to learn something like that, after a long break? It's too difficult even to watch for me. The skates are not even the size of your shoe. I mean, when I'm talking about the weight, it's a lot to balance, and that too on roads, it's too risky.
Okay, how about I'll give you an answer to that question on a broader sense. Okay.
Okay.
So skating is one thing, okay, but one of the most important reasons why most people have a tough time learning is because they are too scared to fail and
Fall.
suck at anything.
Yeah.
Okay. And to me personally, I have no problem sucking at anything, because what's the worst case scenario? People are going to make fun of me. It's okay. Okay. And that's exactly how I tried rock climbing. And then I fell in love with rock climbing. At the same time, I tried something else, and I fell in love with every one of those things. And and there have been times when I wanted to do something, and then I absolutely hated it. So I never picked it back up. But my point is, how did I learn how to skate is a very small part of how did I learn. And the idea is, I'm just open to knowledge from whatever source it may come from. It makes no difference to me. And that's virtually how I learned how to camp also, for that matter. And yeah, so when you talk about skating per se, I mean, I don't want to get into the physics of how skates work,
No.
but but I am very glad about one thing, which again, for a large part of my life, I did not have that, because I was way too headstrong. I said, no, I'm the king of the world, I know everything, you don't know shit, and that kind of thing. And which resisted me from learning a lot of things. And yeah, so right now I'm very glad about the fact that I'm a very quick learner, because I have no problem when, I mean, if I'm making fun of myself or a fool of myself. So yeah, that's how it works.
It takes a long way for us to go to that stage, where you don't actually care about others' opinions. So,
On the contrary, it's not a long way. It just takes one incident. It could be whatever. It's like a switch of a it's like a flip of a switch. It's just that
mhm.
one cut. That's all it's going to take for you to decide that you don't give a, I'm sorry about the language, but you don't care about what others think, and all you care about is what you think of yourself. And
So,
quite frankly, that's the only thing that matters.
Pruthwik,
what
I
was
just
that cut for you?
I'm sorry.
What was the cut for you? Uh,
That cut was simple. One at one point I had to decide if I want to continue with startups, or if I want to try these things out. Because the thing with startups was, it's a huge world out there, right? When it comes to startups. And when I took an inventory of all the things I can do, it was a few things. But more than anything, the most important list that I made was what brings joy to me. What
mhm.
do I enjoy doing? I don't care what my actions bring to other people. I mean, not in that way. I mean, I hope you get that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, in the sense that uh, let's say if I go to a party, right? My occupation, would that matter about how happy I am and how people introduce me to others? And more specifically, does it matter to me if I meet a friend of mine or anyone at all I care? And when I introduce myself and when my profession is a part of that introduction, does it matter to me? When I realized it doesn't is when I let myself loose and I said, you know what, I want to try this road out. This doesn't seem like a lot of people have taken it, and why not give it a try? And so far I've been doing a really bad job at it, but well, that's how it works.
I wouldn't say that. Shakti, you were saying something?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to talk to you. I mean, I just need to put some questions to you. Actually, it's like quite orthodox because I'm getting bored here. I just wanted to put some
Am
questions
I
to you.
the
Is it audible? Pruthwik, is it audible?
I can't hear any of it.
Sorry?
We can hear him, Pruthwik. So
Hello.
Pruthwik, is it audible?
Hello.
I think
Hello.
he's having some connection.
Okay, Padmini, just you can ask the questions on behalf of me, not an issue.
No. He can't hear me as.
I
Cool. Just check his
I think
connection.
he has a network issue. He has a technical issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be back in a second.
Yes, let me contact him.
Yeah.
His video froze. So I'm assuming he has a technical issue.
How many participants do we have? Never mind.
25.
Okay.
27.
I think he's connecting again. He got disconnected.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's connecting. There was some problem with his internet connection.
Okay, while we wait for him, let's all just like see.
Hello.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's back.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't understand anything what anyone's saying.
Okay, it's lagging.
Hello. Yes, finally. Yes,
Yeah.
finally. Yes.
Shakti,
Hi.
are you there?
If I'm not mistaken, Shakti started to talk, and at the time I went conked.
Yes.
Bro, you're sounding like so orthodox to me. I mean, I don't know why in this session you're talking like this. I just wanted to get that.
What? Could
You're
you start
sounding
the
so-
whole?
You're sounding like an orthodox man.
I'm sounding like an orthodox man. Okay.
So I just wanted to take you out of the wind. Actually, there are a lot of things which you have done, and Padmini's question and your answers is like so. It is always registered in the platforms where we go for learning. We just wanted to know something beyond it. As you started, I just have a few questions listed out. Just one question is like, what it takes to go for an adventure called India with $100. When you're preparing for it, what did you had in your mind? Now, because you already started, I'm sorry, just can proceed on.
Yeah. Your question is, what does it take for someone to go on India with $100, right?
Exactly.
Just a minute. See, the thing is, Shakti knows the story about it, so he's asking you what was it? What did you do when you went on a trip with $100? But I kind of want you to tell us what you actually did. Nobody knows.
Wait, there's a story.
Yes, there's a story to it.
Oh.
I mean, there's a story of how he traveled India with $100. Okay, that is all we know. Rest of
Okay.
the adventure, we're curious.
So you guys make up your mind. What is the question?
About your adventure, India with $100. Tell us about everything about it.
Okay, India with $100 was a project that sort of was in my head in 2013, when I right after I finished India. Shit, all these names are so confusing. Uh, Somebody else is asking me a question.
No, you can continue.
Yeah. So right after I came back from India at 72, India at 72 kmph. With no exaggeration,
Oh, can someone unmute him?
No, maybe there is a network issue, Shakti.
no.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. So I came back home around 1 at night from India at 72 kmph. And with no exaggeration, I came back home. I took a shower. I didn't go to bed. I was too excited. So the first thing I did was I wanted to plan my next adventure. And at the time, it was motorcycling that was the most exciting part of my life, or that's the mode of transport that I enjoyed the most. And that's when I realized I also want to do something with very limited budget. It was just a very silly idea with a friend of mine. At the time we thought $72. I want to leave from Bangalore with and call it India with $72. $72 only because I want to keep the 72 numerics. And $100 I had to increase at this in this day and age because $72 would buy me nothing. And so that's genuinely how it all started. I mean, it was just a random idea that I had in 2013 and I had even forgotten about it. And in 2018 I was just talking to this a friend of mine. And generally whenever that friend and I we met back then, we spoke a lot about all the silly things we wanted to do in life and we didn't. So hers was she wanted to learn some specific form of dance, and she never got around to it. So we both held each other to account, and we both said, "What? Why not do it?" So she had X number of reasons why she didn't want to do that specific form of a dance, and I had X number of reasons why I did not want to go. And my biggest reasoning was that I had to stay in Bangalore waiting for the next opportunity, whatever is the next adventure that comes my way. And at the time it came 1 second. Yeah, at the time it sounded very silly because I'm restricting myself from going on one adventure while I'm just waiting for another. So, and that's genuinely how it all started. And in less than a week, in fact, in less than 3 days, I had packed up my bag and I was good to go. That's literally how long it took. 3 days to do a lot of things because I have a life in Bangalore, right? So I had to sort out a lot of things. And the worst part was when I left for the $100 thing, I had no idea when I'd come back. It could be a week, it could be a month, and I had no time frame in mind. I had nothing at all, other than the fact that I just wanted to go northbound. And northbound till where I had no idea. So I had to sort out a lot of I don't know, interactions in Bangalore. So that took me 3 days, and that's all it took. I packed my bag and I left. So yeah,
Sounds adventurous.
yeah. And for the question you asked, what does it take for you to leave on something like that? It takes one of the most important quality in your own self. That's stupidity. Because when I left, I carried cash, $100 worth of cash. I think it was 7,300 or 74 or something like that. And I didn't carry a credit card, debit card, nothing at all. I carried one copy of my driver's license in case I'm ever to produce my address
IDP.
proof or anything like that. And that's it. I did not carry anything else. And I do not use any digital payment. I mean, I don't transact online at all. I started last week to avoid touching cash. But other than that, till last week, I was transacting only and only in cash.
Just tell us your
So,
mode of travel, Pruthwik. Sorry to interrupt. Just
uh-huh.
let us know the mode of travel because that will be more inspiring if at all if you get to know.
Okay. So now that is a very interesting story because with that kind of limited budget, there are very few modes of transport I could take. one was train, maybe bus. Those are the things, right? But I realized I want something cheaper. And what is cheaper? I just went to the closest highway. That's the Bombay. I mean, that's the NH4 that connects to Bombay. So all I did was this. I just kept taking lifts all the way till Nasik or something like that, and yeah, I just kept hitchhiking. So Bangalore to Bombay took me about 6 days, I think. I'm sorry, I keep forgetting the facts, but it took me about 5 6 days. I reached by the time I reached Bombay, I had spent less than 500 rupees, 5 days, and that included like, let's say if I'm traveling in a truck, for example, and if the trucker and we both decided to stop for a meal, that 500 including my meal and his. And if you are traveling in a truck with the trucker who goes on that on or goes on those roads, na? If somebody goes on that road, you can find, I mean, and more specifically, he will show you the finest dhabas you will ever go to, and the taste even now, it just sort of, yeah. So my point is, I mostly hitchhike. And after a point, I had a really bad incident wherein I was almost kidnapped, murdered, or raped. Wherein rape was the number one thing what they wanted to do. So after that, I went into this phase wherein I had my guard up all the time. And by that, what I mean is, I would have this knife. I generally have a pocket knife which comes in handy. So I walked for a few days with the knife opened and it was tucked under my t-shirt, and I would walk around like this because I was so scared. I didn't know who's going to do what. And it's a really long story about that incident. But so there were a series of things that happened that made me want to sort of made me keep my guard up. One of them was, oh, well, one guy wanted to have sex with me. Another bunch of guys came and they threatened me that if I did not go with them, they're gonna sort of do things to me. And then I decided to take a lift from another motorbike chap who happened to be from that gang. So I've written a blog about it. It's a really long, detailed, and a depressing blog. But so yeah, after that happened is when I decided to take a train, just to sort of be in that comfort zone where I don't have to kill someone or be scared that someone will kill me all the time. So I decided to take a train, and then you won't believe this part. Okay, I always wanted to do this. I walked into that railway station. I went to the cashier. I asked her, "Madam, which is the next northbound train?" She said, "Sir, the one that's standing there, it's going to that's going to uh, Banaras, Varanasi." I said, "Okay, I'll have a third class ticket." She said, "No, sir, it's not a third class ticket." She said something. It's called. I'm sorry, I missed the term. So anyway, I got the cheapest ticket out, which costed me about 150, 200 bucks. Imagine all the way from Maharashtra, bottom of Maharashtra to Uttar Pradesh, costed me 180 rupees. That's it. And I reached there after 2 maybe 3 days, I think. So yeah, from there I went to Nepal, and yeah, and a long list of other places.
It sounds like a movie, you know. What we watch in movies, it's like, oh my god, it's actually happening.
So yeah, on the hindsight, I can tell you that it was a lot of fun. But when I was there, it wasn't. It really wasn't. So now I can laugh about it. But when I was there, no. I mean, I just want to get the hell out of that place and just get out.
You know, that's the best part about adventures. You can just, you know, relive them in your memories and laugh about them. Not at that point, of course.
So I'll tell you one other story why I'm very grateful to Rotary. Now, this is a story that
Yes.
Shakti.
Is
Oh,
involved.
so for all of you who are listening and watching, I am very grateful for Rotary and Rotaract. Okay, so I'll tell you one small story of one other incident that happened. So with India on skates, right? We decided to do 2,000 kilometers. The initial plan was to go 10,000 kilometers, and that was still the plan after I finished the 2,000. Okay, so So the initial roadmap was Bangalore to Kanyakumari, go southbound, and then back to Uti, and then go to Tirupati and back to Bangalore. Okay. And on the en route Kanyakumari, we kept having a lot of challenges because last year, even all the way till September, it kept raining. So rain was one of the things. Second thing is when it comes to roads, right? Let's say you can just Google Bangalore to Mysore roads, right? So if you Google, I mean, Google's going to give you limited amount of information about if the roads are good or not. And when you talk about roads are good or not, this sized pebble, a small battery sized pebble, right? They're not going to take that into account. They're just going to say if that is a good road for you to drive or ride on and or whatever. But on a skate, right? Your skate wheels. Sorry, I
Hey, what's happening?
He's lagging again.
Pruthwik, it's one.
He has got questions from YouTube live stream, man.
It's like again network issue.
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you?
Yeah. So what happens on skates is even if there is a pebble this size, or maybe this size, right? It could quite literally topple me. Okay. So we had very limited amount of information when we started Indian skates. So rain was one, terrain was another, temperature was another, because in Tamil Nadu, a lot of times in the afternoons it would be baking hot, and sometimes it would rain so bad that we couldn't even skate. So after a lot of challenges, there was at one point, I think it was about day 16, maybe 17, I don't recollect. So we had to camp, because one of the things that happened was that specific day, series of things kept going wrong. Okay. So first thing, it started raining in the afternoon. So we had to slow our pace down. Okay. And once that happened, we again had to pick it up because the roads were suddenly dry. And that happened. And then one thing that none of us had calculated was there was a hill that comes to the west of that road. And that hill, right behind the hill, we saw dark clouds, and we predicted there was about half an hour before it starts raining here on the road. And this is the hill, this is where the clouds are, and that is also on the west, so that just cut our daylight by 3 hours. So we had to camp by 5, maybe 6 max. So that once that happened, the worst part was there was no place for us to camp. So we finally found a small village. We walked in, and me and my crew member, his name is Jeevan spoke very limited Tamil, and his Tamil is a very urbanized Bangalore based Tamil. So we tried to communicate with people if we can camp here, because we could go nowhere else. And it started pouring so bad. So finally we said, to hell with it, we'll just camp here. We spoke to a couple of people, and we decided to camp. And then the next morning is when the worst part happened. 2 3 guys showed up at our place, at our campsite, drunk out of their brains. Drunk out of their brains. Early morning, I remember it was a Diwali night. I mean, Diwali day. We were supposed to be in Madurai and visit that famous temple there. So, anyway, these guys show up at our campsite, drunk out of their brains. Their opening line to us was, "Bring out the women." We said, "What do you mean by bring out the women?" They said, "You guys have 2 tents up. We want to see the girls who you're sleeping with inside." We said, "We don't have any girls. We are 2 guys who are sleeping in 2 different tents, because we have a lot of equipment with us. And if you guys get a chance to see it should be on my Instagram, about how big my TVS Vigo was loaded. It was loaded like a fucking truck. I'm sorry about my language, but it was loaded like a truck. Okay. And we kept making, and after that, once those guys showed up, they started beating us up right then and there, the two of us. And the worst part, when we got beaten up, was there was no way for us to communicate at all. So they're beating me up, and when I'm trying to explain something to them in Hindi, Kannada, English, nothing. And the worst part is I couldn't even start talking in Kannada or expect anyone to understand Kannada because of the Kaveri issue. And after all that happened, finally we were just able to get out of that place. And finally, once we did, I happened to speak to a lawyer friend of mine, and that fellow and we came to a conclusion that I can still continue only after I can still continue the expedition only after we give a police complaint. So, and at that point is when we took an inventory of all the things that these guys broke, because they just saw whatever and they just kept smashing it on the ground. So we lost a lot of things that time. I'll give you an example. One is I mean, my set of skates. They broke my set of skates. They broke my tent. They broke this thing. They broke my what's the other thing? So they broke a lot of stuff. For example, the only thing that I was hoping that they didn't touch, and which I'm glad they didn't, was the stuff, because it runs on petrol, and if they had smashed it, the whole campsite would have been on fire. Thankfully, they didn't touch that. And they tried to steal a couple of our stuff, and all that happened. So anyway, after all that, we again got back to the police station. So here's the worst part. Okay, that village doesn't have a police station. There are a lot of villages, and that taluk, sorry, the district place has one police station. And since it was the day of Diwali, they were short staffed. There was just one cop in the station. We walked in and we tried to explain everything. So obviously they didn't understand any of the languages we spoke either. So I called up a lot of my friends who spoke Tamil, but I mean, everybody was busy with Diwali. So what I did was I just put it up on Instagram saying, anybody who speaks Tamil, just give me a call, dude. I just need somebody to translate this thing. So, and that's when Shakti called me up and he said, listen, dude, I know how to speak Tamil. And this is how we literally spoke. Okay, I would speak to Shakti, blah blah blah, this, and Shakti would translate it, and I'd hand the phone out to the cop, and cop would say whatever to Shakti, and then Shakti would again translate it. That's how it happened. And the monumental disaster that happened was that cop sent a couple of people to that village to ask what happened in the morning, because there are two guys who have come to the police station to give a complaint. Okay. And the worst part about that was the whole village knew where the two of us were, which was in that village. And there are just two ways out. One is northbound to come back to Bangalore. Another is the other road to go down to Kanyakumari. So the worst part was, after all the things that happened that day in the morning with the villagers, we didn't know if they still want to kill us or not. And kill us for what? Because we don't speak Tamil, and kill us for what? Because we didn't have the girls or the women, or for what? Nobody knows. So since they went to the village and they told everybody that we were still here, we just couldn't go out. Again, I put it up on social media. Do you know anybody in this area in XYZ place? And that's when again Shakti got back to me. Listen, dude, I'm a part of this group called Rotaract, and I have a couple of friends from that part of the world. They can escort you guys out. So that's when a couple of Shakti's friends who were a part of Rotary or Rotaract, and those guys came. They drove us out of the police station, say about 20-30 kilometers, in the middle of the night when there would be nobody waiting for us. I mean, for all you know, there could have been villagers standing there with those knives and sticks and all that to kill us. So, and then that fellow drove us out. So I owe a lot of gratitude to Rotaract for that matter. So yeah, thank you. That was a small story. I know I took a long time, but yeah.
No, it was pretty good actually.
It's small and scary,
Proud.
actually.
Yeah,
Scary.
Yeah,
that tends to happen when you're that close to your death.
And we're so proud to be a part of Rotaract, you know.
Mm-hmm. You should be, because you've got people everywhere. And that is a good news, because if you ever run into trouble, you know there is somebody who you can turn towards.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great, dude.
Thank you, sir. It was good.
I'm sorry?
Thank you, sir. It was good, sir.
Okay, I didn't hear you, but all right.
Just giving a compliment, man.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Prithvi, and one more thing, it's like just we wanted to know more about Mohan, because it's a Diwali night.
Come again?
And could you please tell us about the person who rescued you? Because it's a need of the hour, right?
Yes. And there is just one problem in my life. I can tell you everything about the person except the name. I can tell you the color of his clothes. I can tell you the car he was driving. I can tell you the color of his sandals that he was wearing that evening. I can tell you what watch he was wearing. I can tell you everything in detail except the name. Yeah, that's a genuine issue that I've got. I can tell you the first time I met Shakti, he was wearing a red shirt, which had those flower kind of this thing. I can tell you that, but I really don't remember the name.
That is what you owe a lot of things to Rotaract people, right?
Yes, I do.
So that's why we are here today. I mean, there's one more question, man. As you told earlier, you won't trust Google Maps, right? Why you always carry a old-fashioned map with you?
Okay, so in my life, I have a tough time trusting anything for the second time. Okay, so let's say anything electronic fails on me, I always have a tough time trusting it again. It could be anything. That's also one of the main reasons I do not wear a quartz watch. Quartz is your watch which runs on batteries. I don't wear it because sometime when I was a kid, it sort of spoiled my day one time. So one of the things is a phone is the last thing that I would ever trust. Anything electronic is the last thing I would ever trust. If it ever came down to saving my life, I would still choose anything old fashioned, something mechanical. So, which is the main reason why I carry a map, because a phone can stop working at any time. And I mean, I get drenched, it'll bloody stop working. If I've kept it in my pocket, let's say when I'm skating, I would be sweating like an animal, and for all I know, my sweat also could conk my phone. I don't know, it could happen. So let's say if I fall, my phone, if the screen breaks, the whole phone is useless. So the phone has a lot of weaknesses, but an old fashioned map doesn't. You put that map in a polythene cover, you are like, you can go through hell and it'll still be fine.
A lot
So
of people are not aware of using the map, right? Like, how did you learn it to use an old-fashioned map?
so there are two things about a map, right? So one is the old school map, which is the topographic map, and that is still used when you're mountaineering, because you need to learn how to read a mountain. So there are 2 3 different mountains you need to know how to navigate your way through. But if I'm going from Bangalore to, let's say, Hyderabad, right, at the time, now those are 2 different types of map. For the first one, you still have to learn it. There are a lot of things about map learning, map reading, which you need to learn. Another, the question that you asked, why do I still carry the map, is the second kind of map. Let's say if I'm going from Bangalore to Hyderabad, I'd still carry that map, just because I'm going on the highway. I still want to know what are the places and all of that. So now that's the other kind of map. About the first one, where I learned was mostly internet and people. A lot of my learning has happened through internet. So yeah.
When you connected me.
Yeah.
But pardon me.
Yeah.
Who was it?
So what I was about to ask is, you, okay, that was some viewer, I'm not sure. All right. You not only follow social distancing this quarantine, you also follow social media distancing.
Yeah, I mean, other than memes, there isn't anything good that comes out of social media. I mean, at least not these days. And I do enjoy a lot of memes. I mean, some of them are hilarious. But other than that, I mean, I find no sense in being online all the time. So my cell phone or computer usage is super restricted. Computer still maybe, because the scope of me wasting my time on computer is very little. I mean, I don't have. I don't speak to a lot of people when I'm using the phone, and I mean using the computer. With my phone, I make it a point to use it twice a day. Like today was an exception, but otherwise it's 11 o'clock in the morning, 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. are 2 times when I check my phone, because I'm very comfortable staying away from my phone and social media and all of that. And so yeah, I mean, I'm a lot more comfortable without any of these. And not to mention, I've got some really horrible friends who keep sending me a lot of messages about COVID, like current score today, 30 lakh people are infected, 3 crore people. I don't care, man. I'm safe. My family is safe. There's nothing I can do to keep others safe. Then why am I being bombarded with news? That's also the main reason I don't watch the news, because there's nothing good that's coming out. Like, give me one piece of news that is useful for me right now, other than how long is the lockdown going to be postponed. I don't care. So yeah, I mean, it's as simple as that. And the worst part is, you go on Facebook. I mean, every time I go on Facebook, I see somebody talking about politics, or someone talking about COVID, or someone talking about some other shit, which is utter useless. If somebody puts up a nice meme, now that's fun, right? I mean, you want to keep the things light. You're under stress as it is. I mean, most of you guys, you're not only locked up at home, you're locked up with people, and you're forced to attend classes, right? You're as it is stressed, you're as it is angry, if I'm not mistaken. And so yeah, I mean, I try and keep the conversation as light as possible, even with all friends of mine who I still catch up with, right? The rule is simple: the conversation needs to be light. Anyone brings up some really strong, really deep sort of a conversation about, I don't know, cosmic something or black hole, I don't care. Tell me a joke and I'll laugh and I'll listen to you for another hour, but nothing serious. So, which is one of the main reasons why I stay away from social media.
Bro,
So
please don't.
you actually left your cell phone at home for an adventure.
Yeah. So now that was...
You don't have a shred of evidence, you say, for that adventure.
So that's the thing about me leaving my phone at home, right? I've gone on multiple expeditions, multiple travel, multiple fun stuff I've done with my cell phone at home. And every time that has happened, I don't have a shred of evidence. I just have a couple of videos which, let's say if I'm traveling with a bunch of people, I would maybe take a video from their phone and send it to my phone on WhatsApp. So one of the videos on WhatsApp, on Instagram, is a... Hello?
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, so one of the videos on Instagram that I've put up is a video wherein I was traveling by the western coast, and I was traveling in a truck with a truck driver who was drunk out of his brains, and with the cleaner who is escaping from the cops. He's evading the cops, and he's evading the Maharashtra cops. So that's why he's in Karnataka. So I took a video from one of their phones and I sent it to myself, because that was a phenomenal journey that I had. I think I traveled with them for about 12, 13 hours. Fantastic bunch of people. And so yeah, only those small few little memories I've got in terms of the videos and photos. But otherwise, most of my travel, whenever I've left my phone at home, it's all up here, and it's something uh, something that's just magical. I mean, a lot of things that if I ever decided to sit down someone and explain everything that happened to me, it's going to take a couple of days for me to shut up.
Okay. Pruthwik, so next what we'll be doing now is I will show you a picture and you have to tell us one sentence about it that explains it.
So how do I see the picture?
I will share my screen.
Hold on. Okay. What do I have to do?
Tell us one sentence about this picture. Where was it from? And what do you remember about it?
Oh, this one. Oh, this one's a beautiful cycling trail. You see, my cycle is on the left, and next to that is the road, right? And that is a downhill. So from where I'm clicking the photograph, it is downhill forward. But I had such bad headwind. Headwind is when you have wind flowing towards you, especially when okay. And I had such bad headwind that day. I had to put in so much effort to even go downhill. And that was a beautiful memory I've got, because that entire road, it was so hot. I don't have a single square inch of shade. Okay, it was hot, humid, whatever, no shade, and headwinds. Now that day, I still remember I did about 80 kilometers that day, the toughest 80 kilometers of my life.
That's
That 80
amazing.
kilometers, I must have spent more calories than I did even when I've done 200 kilometers in a day.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next picture.
Mm-hmm. Holy. Now that is the most reliable piece of equipment I've ever owned. That was my G-Shock. I mean, that was my Casio Protract. And that one, I actually wrote a beautiful note. Hello, can you guys hear me? I can't.
Yes,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So that one, that specific post, right? If you go through the caption, I've actually tried to write a little note about it,
Yes.
because that and that was a very short one. I wrote a really long one, and when I eventually posted it on Instagram, it said the number of words I can write is limited. Now
Yes.
that watch was the most piece of the most reliable piece of equipment I ever had. That one also had compass, so it saved my life twice. Okay,
Oh,
it has,
that's nice.
and that was, oof, I miss it. I still have it actually. It's still in a nice decorated place, and yeah.
All right. Your next picture.
Mm-hmm. Oh wow, this one was so just a thing that I'd like to point out. You see this beautiful forest, right? Like you see the beautiful scenery up there. You see the beautiful mountains up there. All of that. When did I see all of that?
Yeah.
Only once I put that photograph in the computer just to see how all the photos I clicked were. Because at that time I was at high altitude, and if you notice that the road there is really slushy, right? That road is mud and sand and ice, all of it mixed. I mean, snow mixed, and it's very slippery. So my entire existence, every bit of my concentration is on the next 2 meters. I didn't even, I mean, even if there was a dragon that flew next to me, I wouldn't have known. Okay, so this was one of the most beautiful places I went to, because that road was one of the most challenging roads. And to me, more than the scenery or more than the places, it's the challenge that I enjoy. And that specific road I rode, who I still get goosebumps of all that. Magnificent. So
Okay.
yeah,
Your next picture.
I can't see anything.
It is probably loading.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this one was another one. So you see the text there, right? So do you follow a trail or make one? Now this one was with India at 72 kmph, which a friend of mine and we decided we want to make a calendar sort of thing, and I wanted to gift it to a lot of my pals and make a calendar sort of thing. So this specific photograph was right after the run of Kutch, and I was just exploring the place, and the only way for me to navigate was a compass, and I just had a rough idea about all the things that are. And before I went to that place, I asked a lot of people around about what all do I have around. So this photograph also was clicked off from a GoPro. At the time, I didn't have a smartphone for me to even pull out a Google map. So I had an old school map. Oh, Shakti, you remember when you had asked me about why do you carry a map? Because when I told you I don't trust the cell phone, on that specific travel of mine, expedition of mine, my cell phone died on day one. I kid you not, day one. So I went to another part of the country and bought a old school Nokia 1100 kind of phone, and that photograph was clicked on a GoPro. So I didn't even have a smartphone, and I didn't have a map. So I had to go to the old school map. I pulled it out. I saw the compass. I saw what is where. So I had a rough idea of all the things around me. And
Yeah.
so yeah,
All
that's
right. Yeah.
kind of got lost there.
What is this? What is this about?
So this was in a truck I was,
Okay.
and so this right before we hit this patch, right? So the trucker had told me, "Sub, if we don't cross that specific part, before 5, maybe 6 in the evening, I will stay behind that patch of road. Only if we hit hit the beginning part of that road before 5, or is only when we'll go through, because there are a lot of dacoits there. Thankfully, we reached there before that X amount of time, and then we crossed. So he told me, we'll go on this road for the next 1.5 hours. So I removed my shoes and I got comfortable there. For those of you who don't know about a truck, they always have a place for the trucker or the cleaner to sleep. So I pulled off my shoes. I slept there for the good another 1 hour or whatever. So this photograph was clicked there. I think it was in Karnataka. I still remember the name of the guy. Yeah. Not the name of the guy. I remember in the video he was wearing a cream shirt. I've actually made a bunch of YouTube videos until I lost a lot of footage. So yeah,
Okay.
on YouTube it's called India with $100. Yeah, just the text $100.
Definitely, we'll check that
Yeah.
out.
Oh yeah, that is another piece of the most important piece of equipment I've got. So I'll tell you a small little story about a zipper lighter. Okay. So there was this one time when I was at high altitude and on the road. Can you guys see me or is it just audio?
No, we can see you.
Okay, so there's this road and I was stuck in the middle of the road and there was a landslide on this side of the road and so was it on this side. And then temperature dropped and then it started snowing. So there's only this piece of road that's open and both the sides is landslide and there was nothing else I could do. And I was there alone. And so when I looked around for people and whatever, there was one truck that was broken down, and there were two mechanics who were trying to fix it. And at that high altitude, your regular gas lighters won't work, okay, because of the pressure. So there, it's only a matchbox or a Zippo lighter. And matchbox, since it started snowing, all the matchboxes I had sort of got wet, and that saved 3 lives that day. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. What about this?
Oh, this one was on India on skates, and we saw this beautiful piece of land, and this one, yeah. So this one doesn't really have a memory per se. I was taking a break facing this side of the road, and when my crew member Jeevan told me, "Arey, just turn around. It's a beautiful shot." He's a professional cinematographer, so
Yeah.
yeah, so he told me just turn around, there's a beautiful shot, so I just turned around. So I still had my skates and everything when in the photograph. I just turned around and he took that photo.
Okay, that's amazing. I think that's our pictures.
Yeah, so the worst part about most of my Instagram photographs is I am hardly in any.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was an exception probably. Yeah.
Right. So we have a YouTube audience asking you one question.
Okay.
So that is, what is the best part about skating?
What is the best part about skating? Okay, so the best part about skating. Well, I want to tell you a lot of philosophical answers, but I will also tell you it's a lot of crap. But the most fun about skating is the fact that, to me personally, it sort of correlated with a lot of things I wanted to do as a child. And my parents put me through skating too. And the thing is, when I grew up, when I was, let's say, in my high school or college or whatever, skateboarding was a cool thing, right? I mean, skating was what nobody did. Everybody
Yeah.
was into skateboarding and so on. So eventually, and I was never a big fan of skateboarding for some reason. And eventually, when I came across a bunch of guys who were doing this, I said they're called Bangalore skaters. And eventually, when I got myself these skates, I felt this newfound freedom and a lot of fun. The old-fashioned fun that is, yeah. So that's genuinely what I enjoy the most about skating. I mean, it's nothing philosophical. It's none of that. It's pure fun for me. So yeah.
Yes. Okay. Before we end the session, one important thing: why mental health awareness, and why is it important right now during quarantine? How do we maintain a good mental health?
Okay, so now at this point I will have to get philosophical, so I'm sorry for all the people who might not enjoy this part. Now, the thing about mental health was, at the time when I decided to raise funds as an awareness project, I could have maybe chosen water or cleanliness or whatever. Now, when I made a list of all the things I want to take as a cause, right? None of them appealed to me as much as mental health awareness or mental health specifically did. Mainly because me personally, okay, I'll let you guys in on a little bit of a personal part of my life. Okay, when I was a kid, the main reason I sucked at studies was nobody knew. Nobody knew. So thankfully, my parents were well educated, so they took me to a lot of counselors, to a lot of shrinks, because they wanted a solution. How do I get my son to study well? Okay, and I went to a lot of counselors, and then nothing really came of it. And also, I was not that supportive of a kid when it came to all that. So when I sucked at studies, my parents tried to put me through counseling, not to mention a lot of beating I've got about that. And so much later in life, in 2017 or maybe 2018 in my life, is when I got to know that I was dyslexic. I still am a little dyslexic. So I still have a tough time learning by reading. I can, let's say if I'm playing an audiobook, right? I listen to a lot of audiobooks. You take any audiobook at random that I've listened to, you play it at random, I can still tell you where I was. Invariably, I would be listening to that audiobook in traffic signal. So if there was any technology for me to go back or show you, I can tell you which signal I was at, how the traffic was around me when I listened to that specific line of that audiobook. And I, in 2018, maybe 2017 is when I got to know that I was a bit dyslexic, which is why a lot of my learning was entirely different. I mean, I couldn't learn. I still can't memorize a book. So my point is this, all this, and I grew up in places like Mysore and Bangalore, which is a tier 1 city, and I still couldn't find a solution. Now, that being said, my father was hospitalized and my father was bedridden for 13 years. So for most people who talk about depression and this and that because they're locked up at home for the last 1.5 months, can you imagine being tied down to the bed for 13 years? And that was my father. So to me, the space of mental health was very, very personal to me. So if I'm talking about India on skates, right? Let's say tomorrow by some stroke of luck, I lose my right arm or left arm or anything, right? I can still skate. I can still do a lot of things I've done in my life. I can still do it for the rest of my life if I lose a physical part of my body. But if you are not mentally all right, you won't even be able to get out of bed. You won't even be able to communicate with anyone about how important anything is, or for that matter, that you are going through anything at all. So when I looked at the statistics, right, a lot of things that people go through, and in India specifically, we have very, very few doctors. Okay, so there is one doctor for a couple of lakh people, or something like that. The numbers are insane. Now that is one side. Another side, when I speak to doctors, right, they tell me that they are MBBS qualified, they're MD qualified, and they're sitting in the hospital and nobody comes to them. So there is the supply is very hard, very little, but the demand is really big. But that at least use up that part, na? That small little, at least, even if there is one doctor to whatever lakhs, even that fellow tells me that he's not being used by the people. And why are people not using all of those? Because a lot of stigma attached to it. For example, uh, if like I'll give you my own personal example. Okay, even till about 2 years ago, anything at all I faced in life, right, me personally, I would never speak about it because I always considered it as being weak. And when I looked up information, turns out being weak is the sweetest thing you can do for another human, because a lot of people are literally beaten up just because you can't read properly, you can't study properly. So people are not just being beaten up, they, the biggest thing is a lot of people are considered to be under the influence of black magic. A lot of people are burnt in this country. I'm talking about India here.
Yeah.
And which is why that stigma needed to be moved. I still believe that, which is why the mental health awareness was the most important part. And yes, I mean, when you talk about the numbers of one or two doctors for a couple of lakhs, right? Yes, I agree. So let's for the sake of the conversation, let's rule out the doctors. So what are you going to do now? So let's say you realize you're depressed, you have a psychological issue, you're dyslexic, whatever you're going through. What are you going to do about it now? You can sit at home, you're going to cry about it for the next 100 years. And to what is that one point in your life till when which you're going to keep crying about? At some point, you will have to look for a solution, right? So I'll just give you I'll just compare it to your physical activity, physical ability, right? So let's say you in Surana College or in Hyderabad, wherever. Let's say you're just taking a stroll down the corridor. You spot some guy fallen down, bleeding. What are you going to do? You're going to call an ambulance, you're going to call the doctor, pull out the first aid, blah, blah, blah. You see somebody having a chest pain, holding his chest, breathing hard. You know this needs to be done, because even if you don't, you scream out and there'll be 100 people who'll show up. At least one fellow will know what to do. Or you'll call an ambulance and doctors know what to do. Now you spot somebody who is just sitting there, depressed. You know that the person is depressed because he could be your best friend, he could be whatever. But you realize, do you know what to do? Because I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Sometimes I still don't know what to do. Right? So, and it is not something that is evident either. So when it comes to mental health specifically, it's a lot of gray area. Now the point is, a lot of us can sit here and claim the government, say that the previous government didn't do anything, or the current government is not doing anything, or any of those excuses. So all of us can give. But the most important thing about it, what are we doing about it? So in my personal opinion, there are a couple of courses that Mr. Ali Khwaja, Banjara Academy, which is in RT Nagar, they do, which is a peer-to-peer counseling session. Like you could be counseling somebody from your college or whatever. So the point is, there are a lot of things that one man can do for another in terms of their mental health. And when you talk about mental health, one of the things that I also do is my mental health also needs to be fine, right? So which is one of the reasons why I stay away from social media. But yeah, that is why mental health awareness was the project that I worked on.
All right, thanks, Pruthwik. I think we have one more question from a YouTube viewer.
Okay.
It says, have you ever traveled alone?
Okay, I only travel alone.
Okay, that was nice.
The only time I ever traveled with one other person was India on skates, because this was a lot of sport related than travel related.
Okay.
Okay, this was a mission that we were on, which was mental health awareness. Am I muted?
No, you're not muted.
No.
We can hear you.
So that was a very sport and mental health awareness project related, right? So we were on a mission which was a lot more than just travel. But other than that, when you talk about travel, I only travel alone.
That
Yeah.
was really nice.
Which is also the reason why I don't have any cool pictures of my own self. I have cool pictures of the people I meet, or the things I see, or the places I've been to, but zero cool photos of my own.
Those are pretty cool too, you know. We know you're an actual traveler. Just not these people on Instagram who say wanderlust. It's not like that. You actually.
Hey, I also want some good number of likes on my photographs on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, just kidding.
All
Yeah,
right.
you get the idea.
Yeah. Over to you, Azra.
Yeah. So, coming to the end of this today's talk was very productive and very adventurous as well. So first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Pruthwik for like being there and enlightening all of us with his stories and a number of experiences that you had. So it would have helped us in any corner, though we would have not realized it now, maybe. Then I would like to thank all these participants for being there, sitting tight through the whole talk. I'm not a quite sitter too, but since we all learned a little too much today, I'd
Okay.
also like to thank Rotaractor Arun and Rotaract Bangalore East. So with this, I think we should conclude our talk today. So thank you, sir.
Okay, so I've got one
Um,
thing to add to people. Okay, whoever is watching this.
Azra, this disturbance.
yeah.
Hello.
All right. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. So the most important thing I would like to add is a lot of people who talk to me think it's what they should do or what they need to do is travel. Okay, let me make one thing clear. You don't need to travel. You don't have to travel. Okay, you don't need to learn how to skate. You don't need to do anything except what you really want. Now the idea is not that you pack your bag tomorrow and you leave and go travel for the next couple of years. No, that's just stupid. Okay, what I always suggest people is whatever it is that your deep down desire is, right? Whatever it may be. To me, it is travel and sports and all of that. To you, it could be anything. I mean, it could be, I don't know, how to design a nice cup which will hold whatever. It could be whatever. However silly it is, however adventurous it is. An adventure just does not mean you have to climb a mountain and from the top of the mountain you see the world and feel good about it. So, no, that's just idiotic. What is your adventure? It could very well be just walking down the road and talking to someone new. It could very well be just taking a bus ride instead of that motorbike from home to college, whatever. But the point is, that's how adventure starts in your life, right? So the point is that do what you truly want. Don't pack up your bags and leave just because I said so or because I did so, or don't just learn how to skate, or don't do any of those things. Do what do you really want? Is it to score well? Then go score well. Is it to learn how to design a new thing? Do that. And the worst part is every time I talk to people about all the things I have done, the first thing they tell me is, dude, I can't travel. I'm not asking you to travel. In fact, don't travel, because you'll just go to a nice beautiful mountain and you'll just throw all your plastic and bugger up the place and come back, and all of us also want to go there, and we'll be like, dude, why did we tell that other fool? So the point is, do what you really want to do, right? So yeah, that is the most important. And if I had to sum up the whole thing that I wanted to actually convey, was that you owe your own self an adventure, right? You have to, because nobody is going to do it for you. Because I'll tell you one thing that somebody had told me years ago about this, right? You wake up, you go to college, you go hang out with your friends, and then you go, I don't know, you go maybe have a drink, and then maybe go home, and then go to sleep. Wake up, go to college, hang out with friends, go out for a drink, go to sleep. Wake up, go to college, go hang out with your friends, have a drink, go to sleep. Stop me whenever you guys are bored. You wake up, go to college, blah 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 blah. So most of you guys got bored only when I was telling this to you in the last 10
Yes.
seconds. But imagine, this is your life that you're talking about. You must have pissed away a couple of years of your life just doing this. Wake up, college, blah 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 blah, and it adds up to nothing at all, right? And right now you're in college, maybe you can do this. Let's say you go to work, that's the best part of your life, because you're also earning a lot more money than you are right now, so you can do this every day and you'll still be making money. Now the point is, at what point are you going to say, this is enough, let me try something new? At what point, like, it could be time, it could be finances, it could be whatever, your time. Like, let's say at this age is when I will try something new, or let's say once I earn this amount of money is when I will say I will try something new. It could be anything. So at some point you will have to venture out to do something for your own self, right? Now that's the message that I was trying to convey. do something that makes you feel alive, right? It could be something as small as fixing your own cycle. To this date, I've not given a long list of things for my parents to be proud of me, but one of the things my father is even to this date very proud of me is because when I was a kid, I remember when I saw my father remove the back wheel of my cycle, and I also removed the back wheel of my cycle. Except when I did it, my father wasn't home, so I didn't know how to fix it back. So I was just sitting there with grease on my hand and with a bunch of spanners around me, and then waiting for dad to come back and help me fix it. And that was very satisfying for me then, and even now. Unless my motorbike has something really trivial or really big, it never goes to the mechanic. Most of the things I do it myself. Now that brings a lot of joy to me. What brings you the joy? When I say you owe yourself another adventure, that is sort of the mantra I live by. What is your adventure? Maybe today it could be, I don't know. Do you know what is inside this battery? I don't. But that shouldn't stop you from opening it up and doing whatever, right? I know it's a silly example, but you get the point, right?
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the most inspiring thing I've heard in a long time.
Well,
Really.
I
Uh,
thank you. Thank you for
Thank
having
you,
me here.
Pruthwik. We should thank you because I think this was very necessary for us. You know, most people who have lost hopes in what to do this quarantine, they're just sleeping. I think they have a reason to be up and awake, and
Okay.
I think we're dead clear with your message right now.
Okay, I will give you one small example, okay?
Yeah.
In the last 5, maybe 7 years, I must have stayed at home in the evenings twice. And that twice, one time was because I had typhoid, and second time is the buffer I'm keeping. I don't remember the second time. First time was because I had typhoid that day. I got discharged from the hospital in the evening. I came home and I stayed. The next day I was out. That's how desperately I want to get out. Okay.
Yeah.
And in this quarantine time, you know how many times I've gotten out of the house? Zero. Because I found a new adventure at home. So for the next expedition that I'm planning, I should be in some really cold temperatures for a couple of months long. And I will be wearing gloves without having fingers. Like it will be one huge thing without having the split. Do any of you know how to tie a rope without that? I didn't, not till last week. So that's why I've tied a rope to the window grill, and I wear my mother's kitchen mitt, and you know I tried to fix it. And since I had a tough time finding a kitchen mitt, I used my old Converse shoes because that can sort of slip into my face. So my point is, every day is an adventure. Every new thing is an adventure. Do something at home. I don't know. I work out a lot at home. I started painting. I mean, that's a stupid one. That's not mine. But yeah, there are a lot of stupid things you can do. So yeah. I mean, I'm gonna shut up and let's just let you guys.
No, actually, it wasn't like you were boring us or something. We were actually enjoying it.
One
But,
other thing, quick question. There
Yeah.
was this blog that I mentioned that I wrote, right? About
Yeah.
the time when I was about to be raped or kidnapped or was. How can I share it with you guys?
If you can share it to me or Shakti, and
Okay.
then we will make sure it reaches him.
Okay, I'll do that for those of them
Yeah.
who are interested. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Great having a talk with
Yeah.
you guys too. Have
Thank
fun.
you, Prathwik. It
Thank
was
you.
really amazing,
Thank you.
really inspiring.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bye.